It was a moment of high diplomacy as the President of the United States welcomed the Prime Minister of Canada to the White House, a meeting designed to showcase both personal rapport and the gravity of shared global challenges. The President began in his familiar, unvarnished style, offering a mix of personal warmth and strategic intent. Well, thank you very much, everybody. An honour to have the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, who I have made very popular. He's an extremely popular Prime Minister, and I'm very honoured to do it because I liked him right from the beginning. The words, delivered with a confident smile, set the tone for what followed, a blend of informal charm and serious discussion. The President went on to describe his Canadian counterpart with unusually personal language. I've liked him and we've had a good relationship. We have some natural conflict, but we'll probably work that out. But we've had a very strong relationship. Those remarks signalled that while differences remain between Washington and Ottawa, the foundation of trust between the two leaders has been established. The exchange came at a time when US-Canada relations have been tested by disputes over tariffs and trade access, especially in steel, aluminum and the auto industry. Yet the President set aside the contentious tone of past debates and praised Canada's recent diplomatic performance. He said to Carney, "Your hosting of the various countries that showed up was a beautiful job you did. I appreciate it very much." That acknowledgement referred to recent multilateral meetings hosted by Ottawa on issues ranging from global supply chains to regional conflicts. From there, the conversation shifted toward substance. The President outlined his priorities for the bilateral talks. We're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We'll certainly be talking about Gaza. His tone became more measured as he turned to the topic that has dominated headlines for months, the war in Gaza and the ongoing attempts to reach a ceasefire. The President added historical perspective. We're in very serious negotiations to, I guess you could say, depending on the way you count, 3,000 years, you could say 500 years, you could say, but that it's been raging for a long time. And I think there's a possibility that we could have peace in the Middle East. The choice of words, citing millennia of conflict, underscored both the depth of the challenge and his desire to frame the moment as potentially historic. He stressed that the aim goes beyond a short-term truce. The administration wants to lay the groundwork for a broader settlement that could stabilize Gaza and surrounding regions. The President emphasized urgency on the humanitarian front, saying, "We want a release of the hostages immediately," etc. Behind the brief phrase lay months of behind-the-scenes diplomatic work, including US envoys stationed in Cairo and Doha to facilitate indirect talks between Israel and Hamas. Speaking of the negotiations, the President disclosed that American teams were actively engaged. Our team is over there now. Another team just left. And other countries, literally every country in the world, has supported the plan. I don't think there's anybody that hasn't actually, not that I've seen, but there's a real chance that we could do something. The claim of near universal support reflects Washington's effort to frame its Gaza peace plan as enjoying unprecedented international backing, even as some regional actors remain skeptical or cautious. The President left the door open for more detailed questions later, but signalled that the talks with Carney would also focus on pragmatic economic cooperation. In the meantime, we'll spend some time and we'll make some deals and we'll do some things that are good for both of our countries. He then looked directly at his guest and concluded his opening remarks with a cordial acknowledgement. And Mark, it's an honour to have you. Thank you very much. Prime Minister Carney responded in kind, choosing a tone of gratitude and continuity. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And if I may, you kindly hosted me and some of my colleagues a few months ago, and I said at the time, his words were a reminder of the evolving yet constructive dialogue between the two North American neighbours. For Carney, this trip marks his second visit to Washington since taking office in March 2025, highlighting the importance both sides attach to maintaining strong bilateral ties at a time of global uncertainty. In retelling the encounter, it is worth noting the political backgrounds of both leaders. Donald Trump returned to the White House after the 2024 US election, once again setting the tone for American foreign policy with his trademark directness. Mark Carney, a former Bank of Canada governor and Bank of England governor, became Canada's 24th Prime Minister earlier this year, bringing a technocratic and pragmatic style to the job after the long tenure of Justin Trudeau. Their meeting therefore represented not just another bilateral summit, but a convergence of two leaders with very different political pedigrees, but a shared need for results on pressing issues. The warm exchange at the outset belied the complexity of the agenda. Trade disputes have simmered for years, with Washington frequently pressing Ottawa on market access and defence spending, while Canada has sought protection for key domestic industries. The Gaza crisis added a new layer of urgency to the talks. In recent months, violence in the region has escalated, with Israel's military operations in Gaza and cross-border hostilities drawing condemnation and sparking widespread humanitarian concern. A US-backed plan, supported by Egypt and Qatar as mediators, envisions a phased ceasefire, a release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas, and a gradual transfer of civil administration in Gaza to an internationally supervised interim authority. The president's insistence on immediate hostage release reflects domestic political pressures as well as humanitarian imperatives. Families of hostages in Israel and in the United States have held vigils and pressed their governments for swifter action. By declaring, "We want a release of the hostages immediately," he sent a message aimed as much at those families as at the negotiators in Cairo. The suggestion that literally every country in the world has supported the plan may be rhetorical, but it underscores the White House's narrative that the peace initiative has broad legitimacy. In reality, while most Western and several Arab governments have endorsed the framework, some nations have expressed reservations or demanded modifications, especially regarding the future governance of Gaza and security guarantees for Israel. Nonetheless, the US administration portrays the current moment as one of rare alignment among major international players. For Canada, the stakes in this diplomacy are both moral and practical. Ottawa has been part of the coalition providing humanitarian aid to Gaza and has supported the call for a negotiated settlement. Prime Minister Carney's participation in the Washington meeting highlighted his government's willingness to back the US-led peace push, while also ensuring that Canadian perspectives on humanitarian relief and refugee support are heard. The meeting also addressed the question of how to translate diplomatic rhetoric into tangible progress. The president's phrase, "We'll spend some time and we'll make some deals," reflected his transactional approach to foreign relations. For Canada, deals might mean enhanced trade access or cooperation on critical minerals and energy transition projects. For the US, it also implies that allies like Canada may be asked to take on greater commitments, whether in NATO defence spending or in supporting reconstruction in post-conflict Gaza. Observers noted that the president's use of long historical timeframes, 3,000 years, 500 years, echoes a pattern in his public remarks, framing current conflicts as the continuation of ancient struggles. While historians may debate such sweeping characterizations, the comment reveals the rhetorical style he favors, situating his policy initiatives as bold efforts to resolve seemingly eternal disputes. Carney, by contrast, has built his political identity on evidence-based policymaking and financial expertise. His diplomatic remarks at the White House avoided any such sweeping historical allusions, focusing instead on the practical work of partnership and negotiation. The significance of the meeting lies in the intersection of urgent conflict resolution and long-standing bilateral challenges. As the Gaza war grinds on, every summit that can reinforce international consensus and mobilize resources for peace counts. The White House event symbolized not just an attempt to reinforce US-Canada relations, but to showcase a united front in the search for an elusive Middle East settlement. The cordial personal exchanges between the two leaders provided a necessary human touch in an otherwise fraught political climate. Yet behind the smiles and handshakes lay the recognition that neither trade disputes nor the Gaza conflict would be resolved overnight. Each leader faces domestic constituencies demanding concrete outcomes. Carney from Canadian industries and voters affected by US tariffs, the president from constituents pressing for hostages release and an end to spiraling violence abroad. In this moment, as negotiations in Cairo continue with uncertain prospects, the president's words highlight both ambition and fragility. His assertion that there is a real chance that we could do something captures the essence of diplomacy. The constant balancing of hope against history, of optimism against the intractable nature of conflict. For the international community, the outcome of these efforts will have far-reaching implications, not only for the people of Gaza and Israel, but for regional stability, energy markets, and the credibility of Western-led peace initiatives. For Canada and the United States, the success of their joint diplomatic push will test the resilience of a relationship that has weathered trade disputes, political turnover, and shifting global priorities. As the leaders concluded their public remarks and moved behind closed doors to discuss specifics, The broader world watched for signs that this high-profile encounter would translate into progress on both bilateral trade and the Gaza peace front. The president's words, especially his insistence on immediate hostage release and his assertion of near-universal support for the peace plan, will likely continue to shape the narrative in the days ahead. In the end, the meeting underscored that diplomacy often unfolds not only in grand negotiations in distant capitals, but also in the personal exchanges between leaders who, despite differences, recognize the necessity of working together. It revealed that in the midst of global conflicts, even the seemingly routine gestures of alliance can have outsized symbolic significance. And it served as a reminder that the path to peace and stability often begins with dialogue, persistence, and a willingness to engage even when the odds seem long.